Welcome, everyone, to the Firing the Man podcast. On today's episode, we are joined by Seneca Hampton, an experienced e-commerce seller that has successfully grown and scaled his health and fitness brand into an absolute Goliath on Amazon. I met Seneca a few weeks ago, and what was scheduled to be a 30-minute call turned into a 2-hour deep dive on all things digital marketing, developing a team, and strategies to crush it on Amazon. This is an episode you will not want to miss. Welcome to the show, Seneca.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was crazy, David, when we met. Our small call turned into, like we'd known each other for a long time. Really, really crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome. I remember that evening talking to my wife, just saying like, I met this just really cool guy today named Seneca, and we talked for 2 hours. It was awesome. So anyway, yeah, looking forward to rolling that conversation into the podcast. So, first things first, let's talk about your story and what led you to starting a brand on Amazon.
I, man, I was actually working for a company that sold products on Amazon, and I was oblivious. This was, I want to say, 8 years ago, and funny enough, I said to myself, "Who buys stuff on Amazon? Why are you guys selling on Amazon?" Right? I probably just dated myself. Um, and they were doing about 1 million a year. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. 3 years later, they were doing 60 million a year. And along that timeline, the light bulb kind of clicked, and I'm like, okay, I think there's some opportunity here. And one thing led to another, and voila.
Awesome, awesome. That's a lot of people talk about firing the man, right? Like quitting your job and going to work somewhere else. But what a great spot to start your career.
Yes.
Learning Amazon on someone else's dime, and that's a really good opportunity. So, anyway, Ken, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, sure. So Seneca, glad to have you on. And it sounds like a really interesting story. And like David mentioned, you kind of took your skills you learned on the job and was like, I'm kind of branch out and do my own thing. So for the listeners who haven't started their own business yet, can you kind of take us back to like the early days of when you were kind of figuring it out? Did you have a basement full of inventory? Like, what did that look like?
So when I started with the company I was working for, they had a warehouse. They kind of had their whole process streamlined, and the owners were younger than me, actually, which was really, really interesting. And so efficiency was really important. So I was able to pick up a lot of things that, just the mindset of you have to be efficient with the business. And so I set off to look for a product. I think like most people do on Amazon, they're like, what can I sell? And everybody has their rubric, right? And mine was like, it has to be small and, not fragile. You guys know that whole checklist, right? I'm dating myself again. And so I went looking for a product, and I found one, and it connected with me because I had some personal history in the industry or in that niche. And so I wasn't doing something that I knew nothing about. I ran into the product and I went, whoa, hold on. Like I know how this is supposed to work. And everything that I could think of was subpar. And so I set out to improve it. And I didn't stop until I made it better. My first inventory order, I had $700 to my name. That's all I had. And I placed an order for, I think my first order was like $1,500. And so my down payment was like, I don't know, 30% on that. And so I put that down, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. Where am I going to come up with the rest of this money? And like, as the very first business hurdle, it's like, all right, well, you just place an order for 2 times the money you don't have. And I know for some people, like $1,500, they're like, oh, that's not a big deal. I mean, when you're like, how old was I, 20, early 20s, and you're working a job and you're living paycheck to paycheck, $700 is not like easy to just like, I'm gonna, swipe my credit card. Like my max limit on my credit card was like $200. So I had to figure out, how the heck do I come up with this money? And the cool thing was, for me, I had seen and I was watching every day a company sell successfully. And so I'm like, this works. I know it works. It's not a question, that I had in my mind of, is this like, what if I fail? What if I'm like, I'm doing it every day. I know that this works. And so I just started, I went to my phone and I just like scrolled through and I just started calling people and I was like, hey, can I borrow bucks? And I came up with the remaining 700. I put that down. The product was shipped and I got it delivered to my apartment at the time. And I lived on like the third or fourth floor, and the UPS guy that delivered it it was like 60 boxes, and he left them all outside of my door. I didn't have a dolly. I was like, oh my goodness. By the way, the product wasn't packaged. It was just individually placed in. And so I'm like, oh my, how am I going to turn this into a sellable, like, packaged product? And so I went on TaskRabbit and I hired a guy and I'm like, hey, can you come help me pack these, this product? And I went to, I know a little bit of Photoshop. And so I like Jimmy rigged this, the barcode onto like this weird looking label. And I went on some website to find like, print labels on demand, and I ordered a bunch of labels. I ordered a bunch of poly bags from Uline, and I sat in the middle of the floor. And once I moved everything in the house, the entire living room, I didn't have any furniture. The entire living room was full of these boxes. My roommate at the time was like, "Whoa, what the heck are you doing?" And the guy came from TaskRabbit. He's like, "What am I doing today?" I'm like, "We're packing, poly bags." And so we sat on the middle of the floor for about 4 hours, and that still wasn't enough. Guy had to come for 3 days for me to pack. I think it was 1,000 units. I knew nothing about, the barcode and Amazon shipping and the weight of the box. And so I'm like, okay, I put everything in the box, and the box was like 70 pounds. And I stopped, and it was like, you can't ship in. But I didn't have a scale, by the way. So I had to take one full box all the way to like the postal annex store and have them weigh it. And it was super clunky. I didn't know really what I was doing. But I just kind of fudged through it and figured it out. So I know that's a long-winded way of answering your question, but hopefully I did.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that is the product you're still selling today?
Yeah, that's actually my number one seller. Now I have 50 SKUs. Now.
Okay. So, Seneca, I just want to point out that most people that we talk to, their first like 2, 3, 4 products that they launch are horrible. Mine was candlestick holders. Ken, you had a drop shipping business, and so that's awesome. That's awesome. And the one like unique thing about your story is that you were working for somebody that was doing Amazon, and so it's that non-cash compensation that had to play a role in it, and so but yeah, I like that story about no furniture, inventory everywhere, and yeah, it's fortunately I had met my wife when I started this, but I would imagine like dating's pretty hard when your living room's a warehouse, right?
Yeah. My girlfriend at the time she's not my wife. She was like, what are you doing? You should just focus on your career at this company and you should move up. And I was like, I'll do both. But I think there's something here. And the cool thing, I had the opportunity of working, seeing it firsthand, not having to pay for it, right? I think it was Robert Kiyosaki who said, if you can get paid to learn, like you won at that point. And so it didn't come overnight. Like I decided before I sold, I think I worked for like 3 years before I actually sold my first product. And so one of the benefits I had was I was responsible for running numbers. Before I started, like I had no idea really how to run numbers on products. And so looking at the market, looking at what people were selling, what the customer reviews, the pricing, I had that advantage of I'm looking at these numbers in the correct way, because I think the company at the time, they had like, when I started, like 40 SKUs. And by the time we ended, we had like 1,500. And so during that 3-year process, I was able to kind of run numbers and analyze different products in different markets. And so I had that experience. So when I went to pick my product and run my numbers, I knew all the costs of what I should be considering. And so I think for sure, luck, fate, whatever you want to call it, I think it played a huge role in being able to launch successfully, because I saw the mistakes they made and I was like, oh yeah, I'm never going to do that. And I saw what they were doing well, and I'm like, oh okay, I can make that my own. And so completely different industry. They were in like lighting, and I was like, there's no way I'm doing electronics. There's like no way I'm going to screw myself if I do that. So I wanted something drop dead stupid, and I went the opposite direction.
Nice, nice. So in that early phase, when did you transition from this is a side hustle to this is something I want to pursue and eventually leave my job to do full time? Can you talk about that time period?
Yeah, I had that mindset out of the gate, and let me explain why. So you come into this business, and they're doing $1 million a year, right? All you've known is jobs, and so this was my third salary job, and I was in my early 20s, and I'd never making $1 million at the time was like, whoa, and now I'm sure all of us know, $1 million. You're like, but how much are you really making? And so to work for a company, they're making $1 million. You're like, oh, this is crazy. This is insane. I was like, man, this is insane. And I watched, who is it? What's his name? If I can't say his name, let me know and we'll walk it back. His name, Greg Mercer
Yeah. Yeah.
of Jungle Scout.
Jungle
Yeah.
Scout.
And he had this thing, or Jungle Sticks, and he's like, oh, anybody can do it. And when I started for this company, I was doing customer service, by the way. I was just doing their customer service. And I was just coming to work because I was like doing branding and website design and all stuff on the side. And I'm like, I'm gonna start my own business. And at that time I was reading it wasn't Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was Cash Flow Quadrant. I was reading Cash Flow Quadrant at the time. And he touches on um the the solopreneur in that book. I forget what quadrant it is. It's the S, the solo business owner, or something like that. And it was like, if you're working, you don't have a business. Like, if you stop working, you're done. And so it clicked. I'm like, dang it, I can't keep doing this web design, branding, and marketing and stuff, because like I'm never going to get rich, or I'm never going to be free from a job, air quotes, right? I'm always going to have to work. And that was when the light clicked. And I stumbled upon Greg Mercer, Jungle Sticks, and he's like, anybody can do it, automated business. And that year was the first year. I was in my early 20s. I'd heard about passive income, and I was like, this is it. I can create a machine that makes me money and I don't have to do it. And took a step back from the customer service I was doing, and I looked at the operation, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, where's the product? Like, it comes in and it goes out. Like, this is insane. And it clicked for me. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to learn this and I'm going to do it. And because I was watching it happen before my eyes, and I saw this success that was happening. Like, we had stand-up desk and like these $800, like $800 chairs, and like it was insane the way that the company was running. It was like they're making money. This is crazy. Um, and so I decided I'm gonna learn it. And I went from like, hey, just doing my customer service thing to like, do you need help on Amazon? And they're like, yeah. And so I jumped in to learn the Amazon side of things. And I went home and I was like eating everything I could find about Amazon. I was on Facebook groups. I was watching webinars. I was listening to podcasts. Like, I was engrossed. I just like laser focused. And this is kind of, I think, what really helped and made the difference was there was no doubt in my mind. Like, it was not a question of whether or not it would succeed or if this doesn't work. It was, this is going to work. I'm watching it work right now. I just have to do my own in my own way. And so out of the gate, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. No idea what it would turn into, but I'm like, if they're doing it, I can do it. And so, yeah, that's how I kind of started off out of the gate.
So Seneca, the company that you were working for, was it wholesale or private label?
It was private label. and they were selling light bulbs.
Light
I want to
bulbs.
like let that sink in. A light bulb. Like I'm like, there's GE General, right? There's GE, there's Sylvania, there's what's the other big brand? Philips. There's Philips. There's there are Fortune 50 companies that sell light bulbs, and I'm like, who is really gonna buy your light bulb? And they were doing $1 million, and they went on to do 60 million annually, and I'm like, if people are buying your light bulbs, like I can do this. This is and so for me, it was really kind of a putting things in context to look at the market that it was, and I was like, this is insane. Like, yeah, I can do this. I can totally do this. So like doubt just left my mind at that point. I'm like, if they can sell a light bulb, I can sell anything.
Right. So, um, so take us back to like, so you said you've been selling on Amazon for 8 years.
So I've been in the Amazon space 8 years. The brand now is about I want to say 6, but 5 years old at this point. Because it took me a couple of years. I just engrossed myself and learned as much as I could before I started. So the brand is about 6 years old.
Okay. Can you walk us through like the first couple of years, like while you were in that figuring it out mode? I mean, it sounds like you had a really good head start from learning from, someone else that was already doing it, but like everybody, you're gonna make stumbles. Can you take us back to those first few years and how you kind of figured it out and started scaling?
Yeah. Oh man. So I'll try to keep it brief. So I started off with that first order, right? $1,500, and it came. It was insane. I packed everything up, and I wanted to be very familiar and intimate with the entire process because I was like, it's like, and I use this analogy. I say, if you're just driving your car, but you don't understand how it works, when it breaks, you're gonna have to pay that cost. You can't just pop the hood and fix it because you don't understand it, right? And I feel like in business, things go wrong more than they go right. Your job is problem solving, and so if you don't know how your machine works, you kind of have set yourself up to lose. And so I purposely made everything manual at the beginning, and I didn't put processes in place because I wanted to breathe it. And so I ordered those $1,500 worth of stuff. Came in, I packed it all, I moved it up like 5 flights of stairs myself. I had a, this is crazy. I had a moving company come to help me to try to get it to Amazon. Like I didn't understand the UPS. It's crazy. Like these two Russian guys come and they're like, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "I need to get these to Amazon." They're like, "We're a moving company." And so they helped me move it all downstairs. And they're like, "All right." And so it sat in my parking garage spot downstairs on a pallet for like until I figured out how to get it into Amazon. Pretty crazy. Um, and so I finally get it to Amazon. The Amazon side of things, I was doing every day, right? So that was easy for me. So when I got it in, and this was the insane part. I bought inventory as much as I could afford. It was gone in 7 days, 1,000 units.
Whew.
And so I'm like, oh crap, I have to order more. And so I went to place my second order. And so I was like doing my own little math. I'm like, okay, well, if I place an order this size, it'll last a month. And I placed a $7,000 order, 7 grand. Okay, again, like I'm getting paid like 35 grand a year. Like 7 grand out of your pocket is huge. Like that's not little, especially for me. Like I'm like, I don't know how in the world I'm gonna come up with $7,000. I sold through all that product. I got back my 1,500, and I think I made like, or in cash flow, right? I had like 2,400 bucks. And so 30% of 7 grand was 2,100. Like all my money went straight back into buying the next order. And I was like, okay, we got to figure out how to come up with 5 grand. What are you going to do? I went back to my phone book. I'm like, hey, remember I borrowed that 50 bucks? Yeah. Can I borrow like 500 now? And I just started calling everybody I knew. By the way, I don't have a big Rolodex of people. Like for me, it was like they were they were 20 in their 20s working 9 to 5s too and trying to figure it out. Um, and so that was my first step into trying to figure out financing. And so I went to try to get loans, and banks were just like, scoffing at me. Like, that's cute. You just sold a week's worth of stuff and you want a loan from us, and like wiping tears of laughter from their eyes. That's funny. Yeah, you need 2 years of positive tax. Like I learned all that. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. And I found this nonprofit that they didn't donate, but they would fund new startups that were trying, like in like the what is it, the like the minority communities. And so they were like, hey, we're trying to give businesses a head start. And I went to them and I gave them like this business plan, and they said no, but there was this brand new guy there. And he said, you know what? I've never seen anybody buy, $1,500 worth of stuff and sell it in a week. Like, I'm going to give you a chance. And honestly, without that guy, the business would not exist as it does today. He gave me a shot, and he gave me a loan for the exact amount I needed, for $5,000. I paid it back within the year. And that was the max that they could do for me as a new business. And so I know I'm rabbit trailing a bit here. And so I placed my order. I sat and I waited, and the amount of time that it took for that, it was actually an ocean freight at this point. Like, it was ocean. I'd never done ocean freight. I'm like, oh crap, what's gonna happen? And I like called a friend, and she knew somebody that worked in ocean freight. He called somebody, and I got connected with a forwarder. Didn't know what a forwarder was, figure that out. And the product comes, and it's a crap ton of product at this point. But I learned from the first time. I had the factory do all the labeling, the factory do all the packaging, do all that stuff. So it came like master cartoned, ready to go. And so they deliver it to my house again. This time I moved it all downstairs and I put it in my parking spot. And I was like, I just need labels now, but I needed money to send in the labels because I didn't have the money. And so I borrowed some money and I made the UPS labels. And Amazon came and they picked it up. And I'm like, okay, this will last a month. This will be great. Product sold out in a week and a half. And it was exciting, but at the same time, it was kind of like, what did I just get myself into? Like, this is moving way faster than I thought it would. I wasn't doing any fake reviews, by the way. I wasn't doing any of that stuff when I started. Like, I barely had money to get this thing going. Like, I couldn't afford to do all the whiz bang fun stuff. The product was gone in a week and a half. That time from when I ordered that 7,000 to when it got there was hell at work. Like, I was like, I just sold, a week's worth of product. Why am I sitting here at this desk? I don't want to work here anymore, right? And so I'm being asked to do stuff, and I'm like, I could be doing this for my business, and like having to deal with, like, I've got my own little engine going. Granted, wasn't much money, was tough to stick through. And as a side note, let me say, I stayed working at my job for, I don't know, another year, like a year or two. Like, I didn't just quit. Like, it was one of those things for me. It was like, you got to keep feeding the beast to get it to grow. And so I sold through that product, and the product sold out in a week and a half. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I got my $7,000 back. And thank goodness it was a loan that I had to pay. So like, I need to find another loan because I need to place another order. The next order I placed, okay, it's going to sound crazy. I placed an order for $30,000. Right? Like, it was a big deal and it was scary, but I had in my mind, like, this is going to work, that I see it every day. And I had so much faith in it. That was the only thing that drove me forward, was like, I see it working every freaking day. Like, I was looking at their Seller Central and it was like $600K. I'm like, this is insane. Like, this works, right? So it gave me enough goal and confidence to place the order for $30K. So $30K, 30%, $9,000. I got back my 7 plus a little more. And so I had some cash, and I'm like, okay, I need to come up now with, I don't know, 20 something thousand. And I know I keep pausing at these intervals, but like, I don't think people realize that's, and I'm sure you guys can attest to it, right? Like, it just keeps growing and going when it grows and when it goes. And you're not pulling money off the table. You're not doing, I'm going to go buy X. It was like more inventory. All my money went to inventory. And so I went to find like a personal line of credit at some non-bank. I was like, yeah, sure. Here's 10 grand. You're going to pay us back 20 over. I'm like, oh my goodness. All right, I can do it. And so I bought 30 grand. My product got stuck at the port. I knew nothing about it. And it was the FDA. And so I'm sitting there like, what the heck? Why it doesn't go into your body? It's not food. And it's like, that was a whole experience. The FDA held it up at the port. $30,000 a product held up at the port. It's my third order, and I'm freaking out. Didn't know what to do. And this is what I mean when I say, like, and as you guys can attest, business is problem solving. Literally all it is, or a majority of it, I should say. And so I went to my best friend. His name is Google. And shout out to Google, by the way. So I went to Google and I just started researching. FDA holds up your stuff. Why? Apparently you have to have like an FDA certification in order to import the products that I was importing. No idea. I figured that out. It cost $4 grand, or else they were going to throw it away. So now I need to come up with $4 grand, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I figure out how to come up with $4 grand. I pay for it. They release it. It comes. I'm like, okay, 30 grand. This should last a month. It lasted for 2 weeks. I was like, oh my goodness, man, this is stupid. This is insane. That process went on like that for, man, like 6 months of like ordering and running out, ordering, running out, ordering, running out. I don't think since I've started, I don't think there has been a year that I've not run out of stock. And so the first year we did, if we're just counting 12-month calendars of January to December, first year was like 30K. Second year was 300K. Third year was $1 million. Fourth year was 2. Next year was 4. Like and then I think this year we did 6.6. We were supposed to do 8, and we ran out of stock. And so this year, 2022, if we can stay in stock with all the stuff going on at the port and all that, we should hit like 12 this year. So let's see what we can do.
I really like this story, and I appreciate you applying numbers to this, because this is something that I think most people, if you were to say that guy over there went from 0 to $1 million in 3 years, most people would assume you've got the big house, you got the Escalade, you're rolling in cash. And I think people that have gone through it, I almost feel bad for people. It's like, oh no, you've had sleepless nights, you have no idea how to pay your bills, you're cash flow poor. And, it's something I spent 4 years in business school and got a master's degree in accounting. Never talked about growth can just kill cash. And it's something that if you have an aggressive growth plan, you got to have a game plan for cash. And so it also, hearing your story makes us feel better, because we go through that too, right? We've rapidly scaled, and just having money for inventory is tough. And so our podcast is called Firing the Man. And I think a lot of people, myself included, when you start the side hustle, you think, all right, I'm quitting in 3 months. And you really need to give yourself some runway to leave, and to leave comfortably. And so, we always talk about like replacing your salary by a factor of 3. Bingo. So, if you make 70 grand and you have 70 grand in net income, if you leave, you have nothing left to reinvest in inventory. And so it's an entrepreneur's dilemma that I think is all too common. And, you hear about businesses failing, and I wonder, the level of discomfort. I can speak personally. The level of discomfort that I've had on personal guaranteed debt, very high. Especially when there's stuff that's out of your control. Hey, this stuff got caught in port, not your fault, but hey, you got to pay your loans back. And so it's, I think when people are thinking about going out on their own, that measuring their appetite for risk is important.
Yeah. If I can jump in and speak to that.
Yeah.
That 3X principle is like I don't have a finance background, right? And so for me, I had to pick it all up and learn it all as I was going. And I tried to have a little foresight as much as I could with what I knew. And one of the things I picked up was that 3x rule. So I didn't quit until I like the business was making 3 times, actually it's making 4 times my salary. And as I started doing better at my job, what do you think they did? They gave me more money and more responsibility, right? And so at that job, I think I was making like 90K. The business at that point was doing 4 times what I was making in cash flow or profit or however you want to, EBITDA or whatever you want to call it. And so I was like, okay, I'm safe to leave now. If I could go back in time, I would stay.
Really?
I would stay. And here's why. I left that job and I was like, okay, I'm done. I finished it. I'm exiting the rat race. I had so much anxiety having no job. And I think it was just like phantom anxiety. Like I didn't have a job, but I had a business. And it's like, well, you're making 400, but during that time, and even still now, Amazon will shut you down in a heartbeat, right? And so I didn't feel secure. And I had seen so many accounts. I'm sitting in the Facebook groups, people getting suspended left to right. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not doing anything wrong, but like, I don't feel safe. This doesn't feel good. Now, 2022, like it's gotten so much better now. Like Amazon shutting down your account, you will know far in advance if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. So there's way more safety now. I would wake up some nights, my listings would be down, cash wouldn't be coming in. It'd be like 4 a.m. and I'm like your heart is like, oh crap, I need to get the listing back up. I need to get the listing back up. I know you guys could probably attest to that, right? You wake up from an email from India and you're like, nobody gave me a heads up. Nobody let me know. Way different now. But I left and I had so much anxiety, so much so I got another job.
Really?
I got another job after I quit. I got another job about 2 months later. I got another job and I was like, I don't feel safe. And it's like, you're making a substantial amount of money at this point. And I'm like, I still don't feel safe. That 3x rule stayed in my head. And it's really interesting. I think the more you make, the more your life expenses scale. It's a magic formula. I don't know how it works. And it has to do with self-discipline, right? And there was the next piece. It's not just about the business and the growth of all of it. It's how are you going to discipline yourself to make sure you stay in a space that's financially responsible in this new world of you're making hand over fist more than you've made at your job. There's still a responsibility you have to have and so much more self-control because the dollar in isn't the dollar in your pocket. And so I got another job and I had been doing so much marketing with Amazon and my own stuff. I got another job and this one was paying me like 120. If I could go back in time, I would have stayed at this job for as long as I could and used his cash to pay for my inventory growth.
Uh-huh.
If I could go back in time, I would jump in a time machine right now. And that's the one thing that I would change. I would stay there. I would not move. And I'd work my fingers to the bone for that job because it was actually paying for the growth of inventory. Hindsight 2020, right? To avoid to your point, the personal debt, right? The guarantees on debt. Like I think just for the business, I think we're at like, I'm trying to calculate it now. We are at, about 800, 900, like 1,000, like on me as an individual. And so it's like, oh, you're doing millions. It's still not a safe spot, man. It at least for me, that's just how I feel about it. It's great. You've got the freedom. You've got more movement. Like I'm much better now than I was, but it's a trade-off to your point, right? There's a definite risk trade-off. There's a stress that comes with it that you can't quantify. Like it's because it weighs on your mental and your mind, and you have to figure out now, like stress management or just managing your emotions, the way you react when things go is a whole different skill set that you don't really need to have at a job. You just kind of come in, something goes wrong, that's your boss's problem. It's not yours. But when you're the boss, right? It's like and you got family and you got kids, and it's like I need to learn how to manage how I feel and still be able to meet my obligations with the things that I have going on. So it's a completely different ballgame. So sorry to be long-winded about it all, but it's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, Seneca. David and I were talking this morning about the same challenge where, as our business is growing, we have, large amounts of debt and in our name and the business name, and as well as large amounts of inventory, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in inventory, and so at the, snap finger, like you said, any problem can come up. And so it is I think as a Amazon seller, as an entrepreneur, there's a risk profile that you have to operate in that space. What are some things, for the listeners, what are some things that's helped you kind of deal with that in the mental space of that?
For me, it's been a lot of personal development. I've had to I've had to make education like a priority. I feel as if, and this is just for me, I feel as if, we go to school, we get our degree, and we get out and we get a job, and we stop learning. And learning was, this is something I have to do to get this degree, to get this job, to be able to make some income. But I applied education while I was actually working. I was like, I want to be the best marketer there ever was. I don't know if there are any I don't want to date myself further, but like when I was growing up, there was Pokemon, right? Ash Ketchum was going to be the greatest Pokemon, master. I was like, I'm going to be the greatest marketer ever. And so I took learning when I went home. That's what I was doing, right? Like homework. I was studying marketing. I was studying, you know, influence. I was studying reading books. And so when I left my job, the only thing that could keep me mentally satiated and like the stress levels down was I was always learning. Even now, I've got a whole list of ebooks and books. Like I see tons of books behind you guys, both of you. You're always learning because knowledge is something people can't take from you, right? And the more you have, when the problems arise, the stress levels don't rise as high because you have a tool to pull. Oh, I remember this principle from this. I have something to pull from. And I feel like that's really helped me so much, just to kind of to deal with it. It's like even right now, I've got some stuff going on with customs, and I'm educating myself extensively on how customs works, on like all of it, so that way I'm not out of my element. And I think stress and the anxiety comes from like not knowing. So the more information you have, I feel like you can manage your levels of stress a little bit better. So hopefully that isn't a long-winded answer. I apologize, guys, for being so long-winded.
No, I really like that answer, especially I think there's two types of people, right? People that bury their head in the sand or people that go out and find the answer. And, you know, and this is probably a crude thing to say, but the people that don't go out and find the answer in 2022 are lazy because you have the internet and every answer that you want is out there. And so, back in the early 1900s, if you wanted to know how to be a blacksmith and there wasn't a blacksmith in town, well, guess what? You're not going to learn how to be a blacksmith.
Yeah.
But in the modern day, the number of tools that are out there and free resources or low cost resources, I really like that. And so I think when I was expecting an answer of like meditation, like stress management tool but you know what? You're spot on with education and that discomfort that comes from not knowing. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about team building. So how far in were you to the process to where you hired your first employee?
I have 0 employees.
You have 0 employees.
I have
Okay.
0. I have 2 contractors that I use. One helps me with ads, and the other helps me with sending an inventory. Um, Everything else, I got the benefit of working with. They were 2 really smart guys, and they were so about systems that it was like whoever could build the most efficient system was the coolest guy in the company. And
Mhm.
so that was part of their culture, and it really got me into like being efficient with things. And so I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I've got 50 SKUs. We're doing whatever we're doing, and I have no employees. And they're like, wait, what? How? How do you do that? And it's a principle that I call hyper leverage, right? And so what I've basically done is I've taken the sections of the that make up the business, and I've just basically put them on the back of Goliaths that have to do those things anyway, and tied them all together. And so all the work gets done at a level where that company can't afford not to do the work because they're already doing it for so many people. So should I fall through the cracks, right? It's highly unlikely that I should. So I've just tied all these systems together to where they are performing their individual task or duty on a large scale for so many people that like it's like clockwork to them. And so it takes a lot of that responsibility off of me, and where I can focus is making the money, the rainmaking skill, which for me is sales and marketing. And so I have a contractor that does the graphics. I do all my research myself on the products. I enjoy it because I feel like, just like real estate, right? It's, you don't make your money when you sell, you make your money when you buy. And the same thing with the product. You don't make your money when you sell it, you make your money when you buy it. Price you bought it at, is the market even worth it? Are you solving a problem customers have? Are you really, that's where your money's made. And so I spend my time there on like, how do I improve this? And then after I improve it, how do I communicate the improvement to customers in a way that gets their greedy glands going? And so once I do that, I lay it out, and I've got a team of contractors that handle all that stuff. And so I'll send it to the graphic guy. He'll kick out some graphics. I have another friend who is very similar to me when it comes to marketing. I'll send him over those things so that I get a third eye on it, and he'll give me his feedback. And I'm like, all right, appreciate it. And I'll take it, give it back to the graphic designer. He'll refine it, and I'm like, that looks good to me. Upload it. I got a copywriting contractor who knows the greats, Gary Halbert, like all those copywriters that wrote to sell. And I'll have him write out copy. I studied the skill on how to copyright so I can proof it when I see it. And so I've kind of got it set up with these different contractors that I can just kick them what I need to kick them. They know how to do it. That's their profession. That's what they do. They do it really well. And then the shipping side, there's companies that do that. And you just tie them all together, and like I send an inventory but by sending an email. And so I just have a girl now, and I say, hey, can you watch inventory levels? And she's been doing it for a while, so she knows what the levels are. She knows what the inventory is at the 3PL. She'll create labels and send it to them and CC me. And I'm like, oh, she just sent an inventory. So I work probably 5 hours a month on this business now at this point.
That's pretty amazing. It sounds like you've built up just a series of like automation and process, and you know, you've expanded your team by utilizing contractors and agencies. So I like that model. It's pretty clean. As we're coming up on time, I want to make sure we cover everything. And there was David, did you have anything else you wanted to cover?
Yeah, one last thing. So can you, and because Ken and I are probably spending 60 hours a week on our businesses, and so that 5 hours a month my ears really perk up. Can you give an example of like a very high functioning system?
Yeah, so let's break down the process of an Amazon listing and the products involved with that, right? Listing issues, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to try and break it down, and if there's a question you have in the process, let me know. So you have to find a product, right? You've got to find a niche or a issue or whatever the case is, right? So there's research that goes into that. I would spend my time there. So if I already have a product, like I already have a brand, I know what niche that I'm already in. And so what I do, go to Amazon, and then you see customers also bought. The easiest way to figure out what the next product is you should sell. And then you find that keyword, pause. Like most products on Amazon, there's like 5 keywords that make up 80% of the sales for the keyword. Like there's no need to, black headphones with skull on this, like the long tail thing is like, you're wasting your time. And so you look at a title, or you just like, we all speak English for the most part, and we know what we're looking for. I'm looking for studio speakers or a microphone, right? Or a Shure microphone or whatever it is. You type it in, you see the things that come up, you run the numbers, I check the reviews and I see what people are saying. Whether the reviews are fake or not, doesn't um, doesn't detract from the value of the review. If I've dealt with people sending me hundreds of fake reviews, and I know it for a fact. We can dive into that later. I've seen competitors with tons of fake positive reviews. It doesn't matter because they're saying what customers want to hear anyway. And so I look at it and I go, oh, here's the problem. I literally write out the keywords that I see in all the negative reviews. Falls off, breaks easy. And you start to see a pattern through all the negative reviews. I do the same for the positive. People are like, I love this because it's durable. I love it. And you start to see the same words. And then I just go to the factory, right? Or let's say I'm a brand new product. I put out you go to Alibaba or Global Sourcing, wherever, you try to find, so pause. I'm doing this part, right? I put it out, hey, I'm looking for, let's call it a web camera. I want to make a web camera. And I literally say, I want to make 10,000 of them, whatever. They get back to me and I literally write an email that I copy and paste to all of them. And it literally says, here's what it should do. Here's what it should not do. Send me your sample. And I don't just want a sample. I want a sample of who you've made this stuff for with their logo on it. I don't really care what they charge me to send it because I get to see everybody's work, right? Some of them tell me, oh, we sell on Amazon or we sell on Walmart. I just go to the site and I order it and I get to see it. Compare all of them and I go, this one's the closest. Here are the issues I need fixed. And then I go back and forth with that one person or two or three, right? Sourcing and creating the product is a one-time thing. It's super leverageable, right? Because once you do it one time, that's it. It's done. You don't have to do it over and over. And so now we're going back and forth. They're sending samples. And until they solve every single issue that I want solved on that list, I do not buy it. Once it's solved, I'll pay for it, right? We negotiate. I know you guys know the Chinese love to negotiate. They are really good and they love it, man. They will drag you on for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes that patience to do that. So you just play the game 6 weeks until they give you what you want, right? Okay, you got what you want, you place the order. Now, this is where I've already done the research. I know what people are complaining about. I know what people want, right? I go to my copywriter and I go, hey, all of these things you need to say, go. Copywriter bangs it out. Those same things, I go to the graphic designer and I say, hey, these things, you need to make them pictures, go. And they bang it out, right? It comes back. I review it. I send it over to my buddy, checks a look at it, comes back. We go back and forth a little bit. And so it's good. I've uploaded the listing. The listing's great. I never have to touch that thing again. It's finished, right? So that work that's done, it's finished. Now we get into ordering, right? And so you place the order with your factory manufacturer. Product is being developed and made, right? They're going to put it on the boat. I have a freight forwarder. I connect the factory and the forwarder. I'm like, you guys figure that out. So now I'm no longer in the loop now on when I get an email and I'm CC'd, hey, we're ready to ship it. We need to be paid. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's my work for me.
Yeah.
Whoop, send a wire, right? And now it's moving. So I've hopefully this is kind of given some insight. I've connected those two pieces of those two moving parts, the factory and the forwarder. I'm out of it now at that point. All I got to do is make a payment.
I like it. I really like it, and that is a good example of carving yourself out, and yeah, I like that, and I'm just thinking about ways that we can apply that in our business. So, anyway, Ken, I'll kick it over to you for the fire round. That sounds good.
Sure.
All right.
And yeah, and David, you were right. You know, Seneca. It's a great conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours about talking shop. So, but we definitely want to be respectful of your time. So we wrap up every show with it's called a fire round. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Fire.
What is your favorite book?
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Boom. Nice.
What are your hobbies?
I just got into making music. Actually, I'm a lot of fun with it.
That's pretty cool. What is one thing that you do not miss about working for the man?
Having somebody dictate what time I got to be somewhere and what I got to be doing and when I got to do it.
Nice. The freedom.
Yes.
What do you think sets apart successful e-commerce entrepreneurs from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Education. And I don't mean formal. I mean just learning something that's it's a must. It's not an option. It's not a no. No matter what you do, ecom, whatever, you should be an expert in the subject, and you can learn it through doing it. But that's just what you set out to do. So you can't excuse my French, but you can't half-ass it. You gotta dive in all the way.
I like
Excellent.
it. I like it. Well, where can folks get a hold of you?
If they would like to get a hold of me, you guys shoot me an email. I answer questions as best as I can. I know I've got 5 hours on this business, but I've got a separate one that it's got employees, and there's where your time goes. And so just shoot me an email, Seneca at arcadhq.com, Seneca at arkadhq.com.
Very nice. Well, thanks for joining us on the Firing the Man podcast, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you so much. And to all the people out there, go ahead and crush it, man. You guys got this.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks.